This meeting is being recorded, so if you are uncomfortable, please hop off now. And so we will be muting everybody. So if you do want to say something, we encourage you to come off of mute. If you're not comfortable with that, just put something in the chat and it'll be addressed. But other than that, we're excited to have you here. And Rowan.
Thank you so much, Dominique. Let's see. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the IBM Technical Sales Track session in collaboration with the Society of Women Engineers at UT Dallas. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rowan Al Akbar, and I am a data and AI client technical specialist at IBM. And I am joined today by my peers and the TST team and a team of panelists who will be introduced shortly. And, you know, the technical sales track team has worked really hard to make this event possible, but we would like to specifically shout out to Jeshna and Centura and the SWE team for their time and willingness to collaborate with us. Now, I just want to make sure so this is a technical sales track team. It has expanded this year. We have Dorothy and Andrew who joined us recently, and also an additional Summit technical specialist. We're all very excited to continuously add content and create content that is really relevant to audiences in universities or early professionals. Next slide. Okay. This is a team of panelists who will be very helpful today. They are IBMers with different roles at IBM. I think a very common question that came up while I was personally pursuing my education is, what career path am I going to pursue? What does it look like? I see these terms and titles, but it's not easy to understand them from a day-to-day perspective. So we invited these special IBMers to come discuss with you and answer some of your pressing questions. And if you have, of course, any other or additional questions that you would like to add, please add them to the chat box or feel free to come on off mute. And we have software engineer, a consultant, a solutions executive, an architect, and even a technical manager on the call today. Very excited. Next. To get started, today we will jump right in and ask each panelist questions about the roles and answer any of your questions. So let's start with Romy Padam. Romy is a senior software engineer. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, Romy?
Yeah, sure. First and foremost, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to speak to an amazing group of women. I started my journey into tech 9 years ago with a bachelor's degree in computer engineering from India. Right after I got the opportunity to work as a software developer at Tata Consultancy Services in their financial services domain. After 2 years of gaining technical as well as functional experience, I was given an opportunity to work in Ecuador in South America as a software consultant, where I worked closely with a banking client to modernize their information system. Thereafter, I decided to advance my knowledge of technology and pursued Masters in Computer Science from the University of Texas at Dallas. After graduating, I joined IBM as a senior software developer in IBM Watson Financial Services Group. And I have the opportunity to work on a range of software products that are used to create applications that manage and monitor financial transactions. And one fun fact about me is my career has taken me places, and I have gained international work experience, having worked in 3 continents during my 7 years of work experience.
Super exciting. So the first question I would like to start out, Romy, with, can you describe your day-to-day role at IBM as a senior software engineer?
Absolutely. So what I do on a day-to-day basis is work on various technical problems while developing new software flows and solving user problems.
Great. Thank you so much. Next slide, Dominique. Okay, this is a very important question, I think, to some of the audience. We have a lot of computer scientists. And I'm not sure, this is my perception. I'm not sure about the rest of the people watching this, but you may have wondered, like, how much coding experience do I need to have prior to, applying to a full-time role? What type of experience do I need? Right? So, Romy, in your own words, going into your role, how much coding experience did you have? And do you have anything to add to that?
Before joining IBM, I had professional coding experience of 6+ years. And for the entire duration of my master's degree, I was actively coding for projects and assignments. So that makes a total of 8 years of coding experience. And I think to be a successful software developer at any level, it be entry, mid-career, or senior, it is very important to have a good understanding of programming fundamentals. And it is extremely crucial to have a good knowledge of data structures, algorithms, and object-oriented skills. If you are a beginner in computer science, you may want to gain experience by practice. So you can make good use of online resources like LeetCode or HackerRank to enhance your coding skills by solving problems. Once you get comfortable with basics, you can venture out and create projects, which you can then list on your profile to add value to it. And it would also help recruiters and managers relate to the job you apply for. I think the other thing to keep in mind is all developers are not the same. Some specialize in database, others are passionate about networking or mobile computing, and so on. And people looking into career in computer science may want to consider finding a specialization. Personally, for me, my undergraduate degree helped me to explore a broad scope of computer science, and my graduate curriculum allowed me to tailor my studies to specific area of interest. So that is something to think about. And for what programming languages to learn, it again depends on your area of interest. If you are interested in front-end development, you may want to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And if you're interested in back-end development, Java, PHP, Python would be a good choice. Um, and last but not the least, apply for as many internships as you find. The experience would help you to explore all aspects of the job, and you will truly learn how to work in a corporate professional environment. And while you are at it, don't be afraid to ask people for feedback on your code. Yeah, so I think these are the things to keep in mind when building your profile in coding.
That is great advice. And if anyone has questions about that, or you kind of know what path you want to take, is it front end, is it back end, feel free to add any of your questions in the chat box. I think Romy would be a very great resource to ask. She has a lot of experience and knowledge, clearly. So the next question I have for you, Romy, is and I know you've touched on this prior, what piece of advice would you give to someone that is a beginner coder that is looking to get into this role? I know you're in a senior level, so maybe let's say they didn't have as much internship experience, or they're just trying to find something that works for them. They're still not sure. What advice would you give them if they don't have as much experience as you?
I think one thing that got me hooked to computer science was that I was always curious to know how technology works and how can I get most use out of it. So I think the key is to have that curiosity. Everything you learn, think of how you can apply it to solve real problems, and be fearless to jump into other people's code when exploring some arena of technology. And secondly, from my personal experience, I used to work as a developer for a client who wanted to modernize their legacy systems to adapt to new demands. And I realized how quickly technology advances and how important it is for companies to stay on top of newer technology trends. to gain a competitive edge and create continuous value. So likewise, it's extremely important for a software developer to adopt a growth mindset by keep evolving with newer technologies and programming skills.
Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, continuous learning is something that we're always encouraged to do at IBM, whether we are developers or not. But thank you so much for touching on that. It's never ending. We have a lot to learn, and especially with technology, things are fast paced and innovation comes every single day. You hear about new solutions. Thank you so much, Romy, for your time. We really appreciate your advice and everything you have shared. Now let's move on to the next panelist, Angie Wells. She is an Enterprise Client Solutions Executive. Thank you, Angie, for joining us. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to be able to join you tonight. I am a computer science major as well from East Carolina, and I'm coming up on 25 years with IBM, December the 11th. So I probably am the oldest panelist here tonight. But I've had a long, very good career at IBM. I started out as a, for those of you who may or may not know, an old mainframe programmer, COBOL DB2. See, I'm dating myself and aging myself. But I started out as a programmer. I worked my way up into a project manager. Then I moved into management. I was a manager within IBM for 16, 17 years. And to where I am now, which is a solutions client solution executive. And so what I really do today is I took all of that experience that I've done in the past, and now I sell it to clients. So I sell IT strategic outsourcing for clients. And like just right now, I submitted a proposal for a biopharmaceutical company on Saturday. And so now today I've got my team and we're preparing to get ready to present that proposal on Wednesday to the client via a video conference. But you know, all the various jobs I've had over the last 25 years has just given me the experience, the confidence to be able to go and work with clients, help them solve problems. And I can speak from my own experience because I've actually lived it, which goes a lot to having credibility with the client.
That's a great point. And it's really interesting to see someone with a programming experience move up into a client-facing role. I hear some background noise from someone. Hear me well? Okay. Did you mute the speaker? So yeah, Angie, I think that it's really cool that you went from a programming background all the way into client-facing role. So this is a great example for the audience to know that, let's say you're in a technical role and you find yourself that you want to engage with people, you want to have a dynamic role where no 2 days are the same, you want to be able to make a difference and see clients reap the benefits, then you may also consider going into a technical sales role as well. So moving on to the next slide, Angie, my first question would be, can you describe your day-to-day role? And then we will move on to this question on the slide.
Yeah, so my day-to-day role, it kind of varies depending on if I'm with the client or I'm internal preparing for a proposal. But I'll just kind of give you an example of what I'm doing right now. Again, I'm getting ready. We've already submitted an RFP, so I meet daily with my team. And so this particular RFP has 12 different towers in scope. So I have applications. So I have our GBS for those in IBM colleagues. We have security, network, servers, you name it, call center, just some of the towers. So I've got about probably 30 people helping put together a solution for a client. And again, your project management skills come into play because you have to organize all these people. You have to set the tone, set the schedule, make sure people are getting their jobs done on time when you need it. Because at the end of the day, if people aren't keeping to the schedule, then you're going to get pushed to the limit, and you're going to end up not putting together a really good proposal for the client, and it'll show. So you have to be organized. And I describe my job like herding cats, because that's kind of what, when you got so many different people. And in the world that we're at right now with COVID, normally I would have my whole team co-located in an IBM building, and we would be, in a conference room doing this all together. But unfortunately with COVID, trying to do this over WebEx and conference calls makes the job a lot harder, and it takes a lot longer to get things done.
Yeah, I can see that definitely the case with some roles, especially when you have a big team and you need to coordinate things and make sure everything's on time. It can be a challenge, but I'm sure you being adaptable and experiencing all kinds of things in the 25 years, you were able to take on that challenge.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. The first question on this slide, following the day-to-day question, is how did your previous roles prepare you to be where you are today? I mean, we can see some differences in your previous roles, from being a programmer to moving up to different positions. So how would you say that has helped in your role today?
I think they all have helped. I mean, when you look at what I did when I was a programmer, I had to understand how to take direction from the leadership, where when I moved into project management, I learned how to give direction. I learned how to communicate, how to keep things moving along like they should, on time and under budget. Moved into management, learned how to deal with different people, different personalities, different issues that would arise, which kind of helped me be able to, be able to face things and handle things as they come and think on my feet. To actually being in delivery and being a delivery project exec for a commercial client. And, unfortunately, clients, they only remember the bad stuff. They never remember the good stuff you do, right? It's always that Sev 1 that you had the night before that's causing them issues that they actually remember. But being able to be mature enough and handle that and not take anything personal, but be able to drive the issue to closure, then you win that client's respect. And it's just, and that has helped me into the role I do today, which is sales, because I have a lot of experience that I can speak from, and it just brings me that much more credibility and confidence because I've lived it.
This is a powerful message to the audience. If you notice, like Angie really focused on the soft skills and the aspects of handling roles, being able to be on time, speaking to different personalities. So when you see that a job description doesn't have something specific to what you have, but you can check a lot of the boxes in that role, then I think it's important to focus on that as well, and still pursue the role, because you may have a lot to offer at the same time. So for example, with the Summit program, they do want client-facing experience when you're applying for that role. Client-facing can be anything, especially when you're an early professional. You may be in retail, you may be a freelancer. All of that counts, and you just need to personalize it to match the needs of the company. Thank you so much for that. The next question I have for you is, what is a piece of advice you would like to pass on to someone interested in project management?
So if you're interested in project management, I would say find someone that has a lot of experience and see if you can shadow them on a project. So that you can kind of understand how you put together a project plan, how you put together your team, how you do your daily stand-ups if you're doing an agile type project. How do you track your budget, and get some ideas. And then, if you can actually, ask for like a small piece of that project plan to make yours for you to track and work with the team that's doing that piece of work. And then you can move out into your own and bigger project. But, project management is not, it may sound easy, but it's not. It's very hard. And it takes a special person to be able to be a very successful project manager. Find someone, shadow them, and then you find your own methods of how you get things done. Because everybody has their own perspective on things.
That's true. I find personally that when I'm shadowing others, I tend to learn a lot more, and questions start to emerge as I'm shadowing. And so I get my answers quickly, so if you can shadow anyone in any role, really, not just project management, it's something we definitely encourage. And internship offers that opportunity when you're with a supervisor or a mentor or your manager, you're able to have that same experience as shadowing someone as well. Thank you so much for your time and all the wisdom you shared with us today. I would like to now pass on to the next panelist. We have Neha with us. She is a senior SAP supply chain consultant. Neha, thank you so much. And could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So my name is Neha Saxena. I went to Georgia Tech for my undergrad degree, just graduated about 3 years ago with a degree in industrial and systems engineering. I joined IBM quickly after, and I've been working mainly in the food and beverage space. So those have been my clients for the most part. And before I joined IBM, so when I was in college, I worked for Coca-Cola as well as Cisco as part of my internships. And a fun fact about me is I attended Germany's original Oktoberfest last year, which did not happen this year because of COVID. So definitely happy to been able to do that before it all ended.
Yes, at least you got to experience it. There are things that I pushed on for the next year and then, this year. And then I was like, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. I missed out on it because of COVID. Who would have thought COVID would happen? But I'm glad that you were able to experience it. Thank you so much. The first question I have for you, just like the previous panelist, is could you please describe your day-to-day role?
Yeah, definitely. So I work as a senior consultant on an agile SAP transformation project. So I work hand in hand with our client to demonstrate that SAP can really serve as the one-stop shop for all of their business transactions. So it's a really iterative environment. We're providing deliverables to the client, every 3 weeks in sprints. So during a sprint, I'll learn about the client supply chain and determine how SAP transactions can actually merge with these business processes that they have in hand. So that can include, providing them a presentation of what is SAP capable of doing, providing a demonstration in the system itself, and then identifying any gaps with the client. So what's really cool about being on these projects is that we're working directly with the client. It's not just us gathering information from them and then working in our silos, but we're actually working together. So, we have experts from their end who are well-versed in SAP and then also well-versed in the business. And then us IBMers as well working together, which I think is really just a very unique process. So we continuously sprint, and after a couple of sprints, we'll actually test our end-to-end process and just to make sure that and validate that the solution is working correctly. And we'll continue to sprint and we'll test until we build an entire solution that works for their business.
That's great. And my question to you to follow up with that is, you say until the solution works. How long does that often take, for example?
Yeah, definitely. So now that we're in more of an agile environment, generally you can generate an entire solution within a year. Back when we did more waterfall projects, I never got to be on a waterfall project just because I did join right when agile was becoming like a really big buzzword. But back then it would take years, 3 to 5 years, because you're really like customizing, you're really like fulfilling every single requirement. But what agile really wants to show, and a lot of these new projects, we want to show that, we want a global business process. We want something that works for all of their business sectors. And by having that global mindset, it really condenses the time in which a deliverable or a solution is provided, as well as just that agile mindset where you're working rapidly, you're prototyping, you're not just, trying to get every single detail perfect. You spend, 3 weeks iterating and you take follow-ups. And then the next sprint, you'll go ahead and be like, okay, what did we not complete last sprint? How can we work on it this time? So you're constantly iterating, you're constantly improving. And I think that's such a great method to actually build a very holistic solution.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, cutting the time down from years to 1 year, that's like a big accomplishment and speaks for itself. So the other question I have for you is, how much does your engineering background tie into your current role, especially that you did industrial, and now you're kind of more specific with your current role? So yeah, I think it would be helpful to shed some light on that.
Yeah, definitely. So in college, I studied industrial engineering, and what makes this major a little bit more unique compared to other engineering majors is we're not necessarily building any structures or machines, but rather we're taking an entire system, whether that's, a company supply chain, and optimizing it. How can we make it more efficient for them? How can we get more product out the door? So my degree was really a heavy mix of statistics, probability, and business. There was no really science aspect to it. So I think I would say that I don't necessarily utilize the mathematical portion of my degree, but I do utilize a lot of those concepts that I've learned, especially because it was a very supply chain heavy major, concepts from my warehousing classes, my logistics classes, my quality control classes, because I'm working hand in hand with a client whose supply chain we're basically attempting to optimize. So I think those concepts have been really useful because I do have that background. From a technical skill perspective, I did take a couple computer science classes as part of my degree, and one of the most useful ones that I took was SQL, which really helps me understand like tables and structures. And SAP really in the back end is just a bunch of tables and structures. So just being able to understand a little bit more of that technical part allows me to really understand more of the front end of SAP, how the transactions work, how they tie in with each other. And it just helps me explain it to the client a lot better to have a little bit of that technical knowledge. You don't have to be, really well versed in it, but it does help. And then lastly, like with any engineering degree, right, you're learning problem solving skills. And I think that's so critical in any role that you take on, whether, it's as a consultant, as somebody who's selling, whatever it may be. I think it's really critical in any project. So, just having those critical thinking skills, thinking on the spot, being a problem solver, I think is extremely key to being a successful business person in general.
Yes, I can agree more. I mean, even with me, because I did mechanical engineering, I would think, wow, I'm getting into technology. I don't have that specific knowledge like computer science or computer engineering. However, with my day-to-day job, I found that the critical thinking aspect and how we're trained to approach problems from different ways to come up with a solution has really helped me in different ways. So everyone, if you're really dreading those math classes, they actually help in the end of the day because 2 plus 2 is 4, 3 plus 1 is 4. You start to think that way with engineering, and the value starts to show with time. Not that I'm encouraging you to do math, but you get the point. So the next question I have is, how does being an SAP consultant specifically differ from other consultant roles from a day-to-day perspective? Because you're very specific, right? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So, obviously, there are so many different roles you can play as a consultant, whether you're more specifically tied to strategy, or data and analytics. And for my role specifically, I'm really specializing in a software. So, it really helps me become a little bit more niche. And within that software, I'm specializing in like a specific module. So SAP, stores transactions from finance to marketing to sales, and my focus is more on like the supply chain aspect. So production, what goes on in a plant, how you're warehousing, how you're managing your inventory, how it's getting out the door. So I think that's what differentiates an SAP consultant from any other consultant is you're becoming a really niche in a specific area, which I think is great because as an industrial engineer, I already had that supply chain knowledge, and now I'm really just honing in more to understand how it works at a business level and at a client level. And another thing I just want to call out is SAP is actually its own company, so they're a software company based out of Philly, and what they do is they partner with companies like IBM, Accenture, other consulting companies, and they use us consultants to be the experts on SAP so that they can really focus on improving the software. I think that's kind of really where their role ties in. So IBM is not the company that invented SAP, right? We're just partnering with a company to help implement it. And that doesn't mean that SAP has their own consultants as well, but really their focus is to improve the software so that they can really focus their time on that, and they can kind of outsource other people to help implement the software for them.
Yes, so basically the client has a challenge, they're looking to use SAP to address that challenge, and you being an expert in SAP or having a good knowledge in it and your problem solving capabilities, you're able to help that client as an SAP consultant. I think, yeah, that was a great explanation. If anyone has a question about being a consultant, feel free to also ask in the chat box or come off mute. We do have a dedicated Q&A section at the end of the session. So if you'd like to leave it to then, it's entirely up to you. Thank you so much, Neha. Let us move on to the next panelist. We have Laura Mani. She is a data and AI solutions architect. Very excited to have you, and we actually work in the same area within IBM. Laura, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Rowan. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. My name is Laura Mani. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's actually where I am right now. But normally I work out of New York City, have been based out of New York City for like 7 years now. That's actually where I attended university. I went to St. John's, which is in Queens. And I did my undergrad in information technology there. And then I went right into my master's in business analytics, which was really cool. Did a lot of different internships every year, but my final year in between my undergrad and my master's, I actually interned at IBM. So after that, I returned an offer to return full-time, and I've been at IBM full-time for going on 3 years now, a few months under 3 years, which is really cool. And that whole time I've pretty much been in one role as a cloud solutions architect, and it's been a really good experience so far. Yeah.
That is great. And I'd like to ask you, from a day-to-day perspective, what do you do as a solutions architect?
Sure. Yeah. So that's a good question. But it's a little tricky because I think that each day in this role can really be very different. I would say the largest part of my role just involves acting as a technical resource for clients that are enterprise clients that are interested in IBM solutions, and I work specifically in the data and AI space. So that's what I specialize in. So a lot of my role involves things like creating demos, creating proof of concepts, answering questions that clients might have, technical questions, running workshops. Obviously, those are all virtual now, but generally I'm on client site quite often. Yeah, so most of my days are divided between that and then also things like client calls and discussions. And then I also have to dedicate time to doing the technical work, like building out the demos. So there will be time dedicated to that as well. So this role, I would say, involves a lot of cross-functional communication between a lot of different people. And it's client-facing much of the time as well.
Yes. So basically there's sales reps that you work with. They understand the client needs. They have that relationship going with the client. And then you are basically the technical resource that helps propel that deal forward, because, you know, the client may have technical questions. They may not be sure how the solution fits into their environment. So basically, Laura is that, you know, the subject matter expert that can help them in moving that forward. And, you know, everyone, it's not just Laura working on it. There's a lot of people that can help you in the company as well. You know, nobody's expecting you to know everything from the first year or 2 years. So, but that's great to hear. And also you mentioned proof of concept. Can you, because demonstration is a little straightforward. You're just showing how the solution works. So can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Right, yeah. So I would kind of describe proof of concept as just a more in-depth demonstration. So really when clients are interested in any of our analytic solutions, right, they'll have many specific questions on how our technology is going to integrate with their systems and use their data and things like that. And so a proof of concept is just a way of us to give them a glimpse of how that will work. So an example would be, I don't know, you know, taking a data set that they have and then running it through one of our analytic solutions and showing them what the result would be. That's kind of simplistic. It's usually more complex than that, but baseline, that's what a POC is.
Yes. No, it's more tailored to the customer's needs rather than just something high level and showing capabilities. Now, thank you so much for sharing that. Let's move on to the next question. And it is realistically, and I know this is a part of your job description to know some of these solutions. How often do you use competitive container and cloud knowledge with clients? And on a scale of 1 through 10, how important is it for a potential new hire cloud architect to have this knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. Another really good question. I would say honestly that like I have to use competitive container and cloud knowledge every day. Clients are switching a lot of their implementations to the cloud, or at least some sort of hybrid model, and so this sort of knowledge is very useful and will come up in your conversations really often. That being said, it's tricky to give it a number, but I would say maybe I would put it at like a 6 or a 7, the importance of having that knowledge just prior to starting this role, because it's really hard to have all of this sort of knowledge prior to actually learning on the job. And it relates to a lot of the concepts that if you're a technical major you learn in school, but IBM solutions are very complex and nuanced, right? So you're going to be learning a lot on the job, and solutions are constantly changing and growing, and you need to be able to kind of learn and adapt with those as well. So I wouldn't say it's vital for you to have all of this knowledge already, and I wouldn't expect someone to. It is helpful to have a baseline understanding of those concepts, and then what's really important is just the ability to learn on the job.
Exactly. So with technology, especially like you said, there's solutions come and go. There's new products every day. So nobody's really expecting someone to know so much about a solution. However, that is why I see willingness to learn something that is consistently highlighted. So this is a good message for people in the audience that don't necessarily enjoy learning a lot. It doesn't mean that, it's a flaw or it's a weakness. No, it just means that you may need a different role that fits your needs. It's something to consider, because honestly, we are given training every now and then. We're learning constantly, but it's something we enjoy because it in the end of the day, it actually helps people and companies move forward as well. Thank you for sharing that. So the next question I have for you is, what are some of the key skills, soft and hard skills, that you find essential in your role?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as far as soft skills, some that are really important are communication and just the ability to empathize with the clients and, also with your teammates that you're working with quite often. And then I think, just kind of build on that, teamwork is a really good skill to have, and adaptability is a really good skill to have. And that kind of ties back to, like we were saying, the need for constant learning, and there will be a lot of change, right? And you kind of need to be able to go with the flow and do your job well as things keep changing, and you have to keep learning. So that's what I would say for soft skills. For hard skills, we kind of described that competitive container and cloud knowledge, baseline. Those are really helpful to have. I'm in data and AI, and I did have experience in college just from coursework and internships with different analytics solutions. So that could be helpful if you're in this space. But there are lots of other industries, right? So if you go into like cybersecurity, you might want to have that background. So that's what I would say as far as hard skills, in addition to just being able to present, is very important in this role, because that's really what you're doing a lot of with clients. And so those sorts of presentation skills, I think, are very vital in this role as well.
I completely agree. And if you noticed, everyone, like when we move from one panelist to another, whether it's an executive or an architect, presentation skills and the soft skills remain constantly a priority and really important. So it's something, so if you think you can improve a part of your soft skills, do it now. It's going to be useful to you in any way. However, when it comes to hard skills, let's say your passion is security or being a consultant in a certain area, it would be beneficial to get a course or a badge or something that relates to that, so that you are able to present yourself as someone who has a good balance between both. Thank you so much for the advice, Laura, and everything you shared with us today. We have, last but not least, Crystal, who is our final panelist today. Crystal Garner is a System Z client technical manager, and she is a technical in the technical sales, communications, and CSI market. So for those of you who don't know this, IBM is industry aligned. That means that we help companies in entertainment, we help companies in automotive or industrial market, healthcare, and so forth. So we are able to understand each market's challenges and address them with solutions, right, in a more personalized manner with this division. And so Crystal is in the communications and CSI market, and she basically manages technical sales specialists. Crystal, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me. And well, that was a really great explanation of the market. Thank you for that. So yes, my name is Crystal Garner, and I am a client technical manager at IBM. I have probably collectively about 22 years of experience in the information technology field. I started at American Express, where I worked for 13 years as a senior telecommunication analyst, where I was responsible for programming call routing for the US and India call centers. From then, I moved over to IBM, where actually I started as a professional hire in our most coveted and our elite program called the Summit Program. I think you mentioned it earlier. So I was hired in the Summit Program, which is a year-long, or I think the max is a year-long program that will teach you about the different aspects of different jobs. But so I came over as a professional hire with IBM, and that was 10 years ago. And so for the last 10 years, I've been a client technical specialist for the mainframe, and then I moved up to manager. And as a client technical specialist, I basically, or a manager, I basically provide the technical sales support around the designs and the detail of the mainframe and how it fits into our customer or client's infrastructure. As for my educational background, I have a undergrad degree or a bachelor's of science degree in information technology. I have a cybersecurity and information assurance master's degree from Penn State, and I have another master's degree in information systems from the University of Phoenix. And I think that's pretty much it. I think one of my fun facts that I listed is that I just had, my son was born last year. He was born on June 7th at 6:07. And then when I look back on my birth certificate, I was born on, my birthday is December 7th, and I was born at 12:07. So that's kind of.
Yeah. That's a very unique fun fact. I've never heard that before. That's really interesting, that how it just worked out for both of you, the son and yourself. And also, I have to admit, it's very impressive that you have 2 masters. Good for you. I haven't even pursued my first one, but I just had to say that. Thank you so much.
There you go.
So the first question that we have for you, just like the previous panelist, is could you please describe your day-to-day role at IBM?
Sure. So as a client technical manager, my day-to-day responsibilities basically center around building and establishing our long and trusted relationships with our customers and clients. I also, of course, lead an extraordinary team of professional technical sellers and helping them also demonstrate the System Z or mainframe, you can use either one, interchangeable, value proposition or its value to the customers and clients and in their I guess, call center or infrastructure, or any other solutions that we offer that pertain to the System Z. I also, as a manager, it's my job to make sure that they're building their skill set, they're learning every day, that they're taking advantage of all that IBM offers, that I eliminate any obstacles or anything that comes in their way with their learning or their job. Make sure they stay on target with the IBM strategy and model, to make sure that, we always, present the company as well as it is, as a pioneer, and also, of course, to help them in their career development as a manager.
Yes, and you just remind me of my manager. He does that so often to make sure we complete certain training. If there's anything he can help us with, he makes sure to assist us as well.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
So thank you so much. The first question I have for you on the following slide is, for the most part, on a weekly basis, what percentage of your time is spent on relationship activities? And can you give us some examples, please?
Sure. Well, at IBM, building relationships is very important, whether it's with your customer clients, with your teammates, or just networking through IBM. For the technical specialist role, I'll tell you about that instead of the manager role. It's probably more interesting. We would start with probably the IBM account team. So every person has an account team, they're assigned accounts. And on that account, there's various teams that, there's various members that are responsible for different aspects of IBM products. And you work together to combine to a solution. So the team would get together maybe 30% out of the day-to-day, or to get together to formulate these planning sessions or building these solutions. Then you have your customer relationship, which I believe is the most important relationship that we like to build on. We want to become that trusted advisor for that customer. So I would put that at 40%. And usually we're talking to the customer to get their business requirements, business goals, status updates, or any pain points they may have that we can solve. Next would probably be your team and your manager, your team. I would put that maybe at 10%. That's our team building. That's probably question and answers with the SMEs on the team, and probably talking about new initiatives and anything that comes, that's introduced into IBM. You can maybe talk to your team members on the team. And last, probably about the last 20%, I think these equal up to 100. And I alluded to it earlier, is networking. And I think someone said it earlier. I think it was you. It's not necessary. You don't have to know everything. You just need to know where to get it from. And so networking at IBM is very, very important. Again, that's where you would contact your subject matter experts, or people in different departments, such as the panelists on the other panelists on this call. We would reach out to each other to find out what's good in their department versus our department. So that's where we would divide our time in building those relationships.
Yes, and I like how you mentioned the last 20%, how it's networking, because for example, everyone, like recently I wanted assistance with something and I was interested in an event, and I knew someone at IBM that I had recently met is involved in it. And so I simply reached out to the person and they just helped me really reach that goal, just by being able to connect. So just because you're at a company, it's definitely encouraged to talk to your team members, build that relationship, credibility, understand what they can help you with and what you can offer as well. And that could open up more opportunities. You don't have to stay limited within your job description or expectations. You can always do more with the time that you have and what you want, right? So this is actually an aspect I really like about working at IBM. There's so many opportunities. So the next,
absolutely.
Yes, thank you. And then the next question I have, how would you describe the difference between a client technical specialist and a solution architect like Laura previously?
Okay. Well, so in order to kind of describe the difference, I probably have to break down each one, and I'll start with the client technical specialist. So a client technical specialist specializes in a special area, whether it's systems, services, or software. In my case, it would be systems, and within systems, it would be the mainframe or System Z. So it's the specialist's job to know the technical aspects of that mainframe, everything there is to know about it, so they can educate their customer. Also, I think I said it earlier, to be able to design and build a mainframe that will fit for their customer and know how it fits in their infrastructure. it's their job to be able to answer any technical questions to support their sales team. It's their job to do configurations and maybe handle any problems that come up, and not necessarily actually touch the machine, but be able to articulate it and tell them exactly what's going on. The architect's job is somewhat similar, but on a holistic approach, because the architect not only needs to know a little bit about the mainframe. We don't expect them to know everything there is about the mainframe, but we expect them to know the entire solution. So it's whereas the specialist is geared towards one area, the architect knows a lot about all different areas. So the architect is responsible for putting together the whole solution. So they will work with the technical specialist to, add in the mainframe, and then along with that, maybe do some software and maybe some services. So it's their job to present the product, service, and a total solution. They also act as a liaison or advocate for the client. So they're speaking at the client, and they're also, again, constructing the whole solution opposed to just that one system.
That's a great breakdown. And if anyone has any questions about the difference as well, please feel free to reach out. The next part we have, now that we've talked to all the panelists, is something that I'm very passionate about, because as some of you know, I was actually the only female in some of my engineering classes. And so I'm very supportive of women pursuing a STEM role. So those of you on the call, so we created this rapid fire round to ask each of the panelists some words of wisdom to give women pursuing a role in STEM. And let's start with Romy.
I think one thing that really helps is finding a role model, someone you can relate to and resonate with and share a story that can inspire you. That would help you to know that opportunity exists for women in STEM, and it would also encourage you to step up and be a role model that would inspire other young women to take a leap of faith with themselves.
Thank you, Romy. The next is Angie, please.
I think when I look back at my career, and I've never been afraid to speak my mind or my ideas, and I encourage, especially the women on this call, don't be afraid to express your thoughts and your ideas, because even today in 2020, a lot of times I'm still the only female in the room or on the call. And you've got to be able to, to voice your, to have a voice and speak up. And don't be scared to do that.
Fascinating. Honest, that's very important advice. I sometimes fell into that where I felt like I need to hold back. But no, I learned soon enough that I need to express things so that change happens, because women honestly can also have a tremendous role in making things much better. Right? The third person I have is going to be Neha.
Yeah, so my advice would be to know what you value and make sure that what you're pursuing aligns with your values. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else is doing, but you don't want to be in a situation where you think, oh, that looks glamorous, that looks amazing, and then you get there and it's not what you expected, or it just doesn't match with who you are, right? And I think just really having a lot of personal introspection and realizing what is important to you, what you value the most, and making sure that when you pursue it, it matches those values.
That is great. And then we have Laura and then Crystal after that.
Sure. Yeah. I would really second everything that's been said so far. And then I would also add that it's really important, I think, to advocate for yourself as a woman in STEM, right? I think that too often women hesitate, whether that be to speak up or to jump at an opportunity. And I think, just a big piece of advice is just to be brave and go for it. Chances are you do have skills and you do have the ability, and you should, at the very least, give it a try. So be your best advocate.
Yes. And then
I was going to go ahead and say it.
Oh no, I'm calling your name. It's your turn. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I would agree with everything everyone has already said. They actually took all the good ones. I would advise to get a mentor. You don't have to get just one. I had a career mentor. I had a professional mentor where within the mainframe, so someone that was doing my job prior to me, I had that mentor. I had a career mentor, a professional mentor for future, and then I had a personal mentor. So I love that. Again, a couple of words that I always think of every day. Again, be aggressive. Don't be afraid to speak up, because I love this phrase. I don't know. I'm quoting someone, but I don't know who I'm quoting. But failure is not the opposite of success. It's just the beginning of success. So don't be afraid to fail. Just be bold and believe in yourself.
Thank you, panelists. These are words of gold, every single advice. Now I would like to open up to Q&A and then a final announcement, and that would conclude this session today. Any questions from any of the audience, feel free to unmute or add it to the chat box. No questions? Nope. Okay, we'll wait one moment.
I have a question for the CSE, Angie Wells. Can I ask her a question? Is that
Sure.
cool?
Hi, Louise. Yes.
Yeah. So if you're in that role and you're not coming from a background where you kind of had been in the delivery project or on a project team, and you're coming out of school, you're going into that role and you're suddenly in charge of leading this team of really smart IBMers and engineers and solution architects and whatever. How would you recommend that someone coming from that background take on the role, Angie?
So I would recommend getting and finding a delivery project exec that does this every day, and ask if you can shadow them for a day, or just quiz them and talk to them about what is a day in their life like every day. Because it is difficult if you haven't actually been on the delivery side of delivering services or a project for a client, and you're trying to sell it, because there's a lot of dynamics that goes along with those career paths as well. And go find a good DPE or PE and see if you can shadow them.
Okay.
And so you get some real life experience on delivering.
So you recommend going straight for the DPE, that delivery person?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're, at the end of the day, they're the ones that are on the line to make sure they're delivering to the contract. They're responsible for all the financials on the account, for growing the account. The buck stops with them.
Gotcha. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you. Any additional questions from anyone?
I actually had a question for Neha. So I know you talked a lot about the difference between different types of consulting, I suppose, but what would you say is the main difference between a more client-facing role such as yourself and then more something within IBM, like an internal role, maybe a project manager or something like that? How does consulting vary from your everyday internal roles?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, maybe these are a little bit obvious, but some is the travel, right? Pre-COVID, I was traveling Monday through Thursday to a client site. So I was basically at the client the entire time, right? I would say my Fridays, I got to be home. I didn't, and then I have the choice of going to the IBM office or not. I will say what makes a consultant a little bit different, specifically at IBM, the client comes first for me, right? Whereas if you're an internal, if you have more of an internal role, you're working within IBM, you're doing things to help IBM internally. Whereas for me, it's more of a client, I'm working with the client all the time. It does make it a little bit more difficult for me to do things internally within IBM, be part of whatever it is that's going on. So I think that is one limitation that I run into, but mostly it's just my kind of schedule is based on the client, how I'm dressing looks like what the client's doing, traveling, being just, I don't know, just catering to them is most of the part. But I think that would kind of be the big differentiator is the travel kind of you're on the client schedule, not necessarily your own schedule, which I don't think is a bad thing because it makes you fully integrated with them, right? Whereas you don't want to seem kind of like in a little silo. I think the best work is done when you are working hand in hand with the client. So I hope that kind of helps answer your question, but I will say it's mostly just, you're catering more to the client than you are to internal affairs at IBM.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great question. And then we have a question for Crystal in the chat box. Crystal from Samuel Taylor. Crystal, as a manager over technical solutions specialist, what's one thing that makes someone stand out in that role?
Okay, thank you, Samuel, for the question. I would say the one thing that makes someone stand out, it's not what you're thinking, whether it's a technical background or knowing technical jargon. It's actually communication and being able to communicate with all levels. Like I said, the customer is our most important asset and value. So being able to talk to a customer and being personal with a customer or a client is the one thing that stands out in our role. That's where it builds you up as their trusted advisor. They will call you, they will reach out to you for questions, advice, or just plainly just to talk to you. So probably the one thing that stands out is your ability to communicate.
Perfect. If there aren't any additional questions, I would like to pass it off to Dominique to end this session with a quick announcement for the TST team. But before that, I would like to say thank you all. Thank you, panelists, for your time, your insight. I'm an IBMer, but I learned a ton from you guys today. And also thank you to the audience for attending today. We hope this was valuable to you. If you have any suggestions for different webinar content, please feel free to reach out to us. And a huge shout out again to the sweet team at UTD for making this possible. Yeah, thank you again. So I'll pass it off to you, Dominique, for the TST announcement. And with that, this session will conclude.
Yeah, thank you, Rowan. So like she said, we have a big announcement for the TST team. We will be having a season 2 with the IBM Technical Sales Track series. So I know not everybody was around for season 1, which was more about the Summit program and IBM in general, but this time we'll be diving into a couple different topics in the technology field and giving you the ability to talk tech. There'll be educational series, so join us for that. Connect with us on LinkedIn and you'll be able to get more updates on when this will be and more details to follow. So thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this session. We enjoyed it immensely, and hopefully we'll see you soon for season 2.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.